What role do blood types play in our health? To what extent does longevity depend on blood types? Which diseases are most influenced by our blood type? We will try to answer these and similar questions in today's episode of the series Secrets of Genes, in which I welcome you. My name is Eduard Kranovsky, and I work as a geneticist at the Institute of Biophysics of the Czech Academy of Sciences. Recently, one of my videos attracted a lot of interest, specifically the one dedicated to blood types and longevity. That's why I decided to revisit this topic in more detail and bring you more interesting facts. A blood type is not just a letter in your medical record. It is genetic information that we carry in every cell, subtly influencing immunity, blood vessels, inflammation, and the risk of diseases that determine our lifespan. The ABO system is controlled by the ABO gene on the 9th chromosome, specifically at what is called 9q34 in this region. This gene encodes glycosyltransferase enzymes, which create specific sugar antigens A and B on the surface of red blood cells. Blood group O carries a non-functional variant of the enzyme and therefore does not produce any antigen. These small differences have surprisingly significant biological consequences. Furthermore, we will see that our blood type influences blood clotting, inflammation, tumor formation, our metabolism, and even our lifespan. One of the most thoroughly and best studied biological mechanisms in which a person's specific blood type plays a significant role is the process of blood clotting. It has been observed that people with blood type O typically have about 25 to 30% lower overall levels of the von Willebrand factor, and they also consistently show much lower levels of the essential protein known as coagulation factor 8. This means they have a lower tendency to form blood clots. Epidemiological studies show that carriers of blood type O have about a 20% lower risk of ischemic heart disease and stroke compared to types AB and AB. On the other hand, types AB and especially AB have higher coagulation activity. Blood type AB shows up to 1.5 to 2 times higher risk of deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolism. And thromboses are among the main causes of sudden death in older age. Blood type also plays a role in the development of inflammations. In blood type A, higher levels of inflammatory markers are repeatedly found. Today, chronic low-grade inflammation is considered one of the driving forces of aging. It contributes to atherosclerosis, type 2 diabetes, and neurodegeneration. Blood types also differ in the risk of certain cancers. Carriers of blood type A have an increased risk of stomach and pancreatic cancer. This is partly related to Helicobacter pylori infection, which binds more easily to type A antigens on the gastric mucosa. On the other hand, blood type O has a slightly lower incidence of these cancers, but a slightly higher tendency for gastrointestinal bleeding. The connection with metabolism is also very interesting. Variations in the AB0 gene region correlate with cholesterol levels and LDL particles. Blood types A and B statistically have higher total cholesterol levels than type O, which again increases the risk of atherosclerosis and heart attacks. However, blood type itself is not the only genetic factor in longevity. Other well-known genes also come into play. For example, APOE, especially the APOE4 allele, increases the risk of Alzheimer's disease as well as cardiovascular diseases. Carriers of FOXO3A variants, on the other hand, are more likely to reach an advanced age. This gene regulates the cellular response to stress, DNA repair, and apoptosis. To sum up, Blood type influences the levels of clotting factors, inflammation, susceptibility to infections and tumors, as well as fat metabolism. In this way, it indirectly affects the main killers of old age, namely heart attacks, strokes, cancer, and dementia. But it's also fair to mention the other half of the story. The differences between blood groups are about probabilities, not verdicts. Among centenarians, you'll find people with A, B, AB, and O blood types. Genes determine the starting line, but your lifestyle, such as exercise, diet, smoking, stress, sleep, and social connections, sets the pace of the race. Perhaps it's nice to think of blood types as a silent evolutionary trace of our past. Today, they no longer tell us who will survive, but rather who should pay more attention to their blood vessels, inflammation, and metabolism. Our genetic makeup might deal the initial hand of cards, but how long we play the game is still, for the most part, up to the choices we make ourselves. That's all for today. We've talked about a few interesting facts from genetics, specifically about the role our blood types play in our health. In the next episode, we'll continue with more interesting questions about genetics and evolution. I'm looking forward to seeing you. If you enjoy my storytelling, I would appreciate a like and a subscription to my channel. I really value your support. Thank you and bye bye.